Hey gang, Todd Duncan. It is the week of October 25th, time for our video blog for the week, and good to be with you guys again. The series that we're in are the 6 things that top producing salespeople do each and every day to be successful. And we've talked over the last 2 weeks about a couple of those things, which I'll remind you of momentarily. But the backdrop for this whole series is to get you thinking about what it really means to be purposeful about your day. And you know, oftentimes it's very easy to be busy. It's very easy to get caught up in all the things that have to get done during a day in the business. But if it's really about growing the business, and if it's really about making more money in less time with less stress, which is the subtitle of High Trust Selling, you've got to make some decisions about how you're going to allocate your time, how you're going to actually be responsible with the execution of the events you do during the time you have, and that you are going to most clearly and most consistently follow the behaviors of top producers as it relates to the whole idea of time effectiveness and efficiency. So with that said, your business may be a type of business that requires a single point of relationship, where if you have a client and you get that relationship going, then that's the business that you get. It could be a business that has kind of a pass-through, and that was the business I grew up in. So I basically had to build business relationships with third parties, with middlemen. They were called real estate agents, and they were then the gates and the gateways to hundreds of borrowers and sellers that would need my financing services. And so there was kind of a double stage there. I had to win the victory twice. I had to win the victory with the primary person, and then I had to, each time there was a referral, win the victory with the referral itself, the end user of the products that I did. And so it doesn't really matter from what angle you come at this, but what does matter is that you get the idea that interviewing prospective business sources and partners is one of the most overlooked strategies that salespeople avoid today. And it's not so much that they, don't ask some questions, that they're not able to engage in dialogue that maybe communicates a little trust and puts themselves in a position where they might be able to move that prospect to giving them a try or getting the order. But what I've found is that it's, in almost every case, not intentional enough, not deep enough, and not thorough enough. And what I mean to have you hear in this is that the deeper you go in a relationship, the first time you have an opportunity to make that relationship work, all of the things being considered the same. That is, your approach was strong, you had a referral coming in, it's not like this is a cold call, it most certainly is not a cold call. All things being the same, the more time you spend the first time, the more likely you are to get them that time. And it works in reverse. The less time you spend the first time, the less likely you are to get them that time. And so when we talk about interviewing, we talk about really thinking of it as the interview, I-N-N-E-R-V-I-E-W, going deep, getting to the heart of the matter. Now, if you sell things that don't require a relationship and that there is no opportunity for repeat or referral business, then you might want to do what I'm about to talk to you about light. You may want to just come at it from a little bit different angle. But if it's a meaningful long-term relationship, here are some quick rules about that first meeting. It should be about 45 minutes long. And there's 2 real questions that you want to come at to build the depth of that relationship. One is that you want to know what's really important to them about being successful in the business they're in. And so the question is, what's important about being successful to you? And when you start to dialogue about that, and you start to hear things that can kind of convert into emotional things like security and peace of mind, and a sense of accomplishment or making a difference, those are emotional values that people have. That the more you know the heartfelt stuff about people, the more likely, when using those words and using those kinds of anchors, the more likely they are to be sensitive to the business offering, and in fact more likely to say yes, the more they can see and feel those things from you. So get into the practice and the art of what's important about being successful to you as a, and then cycle that question back through the question, what's important about that to you, and just have some dialogue about that. And what you'll ultimately find is you'll get a couple of emotional responses. And those are the emotional responses that people will respond to when you use them in your sales presentation. I remember a client of mine, clearly one of the most important things to her was she wanted to make a difference. And I remember in my final presentation to her that I probably used that terminology 10 or 11 times in my close because I just wanted her to feel that the last thing she ever had to worry about in working with me is that she wouldn't make a difference. And that was, as she recounts the story years later, one of the most dramatic things that happened in our time together. And so for 5 or 10 minutes of every business development appointment, particularly the first one, go deep that way. And then the second and most obvious is that every salesperson has to set their client up for success, right? And there's a service mandate that we need in America today. We need to communicate in such a way and serve in such a way that we create experience for the customer. And one thing I have found is that most salespeople don't go deep enough in the relationship by asking enough of the right kind of questions. And so a question like, now that I know what's important about success to you, what do you look for in working with A? And for me, it would be working with a loan officer or working with a lender or working with a supplier. In other words, what are the most important things that you need me to know about you and your expectations of us and our products and our service so that when I present a solution to you and if I'm lucky enough to do business with you, I can monitor how we're doing in those areas. And when you get to this point, we have a rule. It's called the 5x5 rule. And I think that every salesperson, particularly on a first interview, should learn 5 specific needs a client has and spend 5 minutes developing each of those needs. The more needs you know and the deeper you have gone on each need, the less likely you'll get objection when you get to the presentation part of this meeting, and clearly the more you'll be able to serve the customer in an intentional, proactive way because you've spent time going deep. I'll give you an example. If I were to just simply say, what's important to you in working with a loan officer, and the real estate agent says good service. Okay, well, that's a no-brainer. We know that everybody wants good service. Very few people would ever say, if any, bad service, right? But when you unpack good service, what does good service look like to you? In order for me to perform well and serve you well, what are 2 or 3 of the criteria that you will always measure my service by? If you could create the perfect relationship with a provider, what would their service offering do for you, and what would it mean to you? And so when you have that kind of dialogue and you go deep with additional questions, what you'll find out is 2 things. You develop a higher and more, I think, richer level of trust. But most importantly, the deeper you go here, the more the client actually solves their own needs that they have. Because if I go real deep on service, when I present a solution to you, I simply can talk to you about the things you already told me were important to you and how I would deliver those for you. So this is a skill, it's an art. You're not going to get it in a 5-minute video, but I do want you to do a gut check here. On all business development appointments, are you spending upwards of 45 minutes really learning what the client's looking for, really learning what the client needs, really learning how to position yourself and your services in such a way that you will then be spot on when you give them a solution and present your goods to them and present your offerings to them? And if you don't do this, then you end up hit and miss, and people will not say yes. They'll in fact say no, give you objections, tell you things like they're already loyal somewhere else or they're not going to move their business right now for whatever reason. I would just say to you that mastering this particular discipline is one of the most important things you can ever do with your sales career. We've covered to this point, we've covered knowledge acquisition in the first week, we've covered prospecting and business development in the second week, and today we've covered the art of interviewing, going deep with your clients. And so test this out. You don't have to be great at this to have it be effective, but you do need to start it. And so just do a gut check and ask yourself, can I go deeper? Can I learn more? Can I ask more penetrating questions? Can I get a little bit more meat on the bones as I do interviewing so that I am more equipped to give solutions that make a difference and solutions that convert a no to a yes? That's the art of selling, okay? Take care. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.